Hello and welcome to the Android OS Guide. This is Chapter 10, the final chapter and course recap, where we're going to go through and kind of just overview everything that we talked about from Chapter 1 up to now, kind of recapping on everything that we covered on Android, the mobile operating system, from the devices, tips, tricks, everything we shared, and just really summarize the course guide all in one. And with that, of course, you can check out the previous chapters to get all detail on everything we talked about and leading up to this point. So with that, let's jump right into it. So first off, the course overview, everything that was incorporated in this course. In Chapter 1, we focused on what is Android as a whole, the history of the mobile operating system, its origins, and kind of how it differs from the competition, leading us into Chapter 2, which was all about Android versus iOS, the very big mobile operating system that is Apple's iOS. Number 3 led us into the best-selling Android devices and how you can go about choosing your device. So kind of just looking at what the options are out there and the factors when it comes into play of what device you want to buy and use. Number 4 is all about the Google Play Store overview. So just simply about the Android app market and the alternative to that of the App Store, which is Google Play Store, which is all covering everything that Google sells as far as music, apps, devices, etc. Chapter 5 is the basic Android feature and going about configuring your device. So if you just got a new Android device, learning a lot about the new feature set as well as how you can configure your new device, basic settings, all that good stuff. Chapter 6, battery saving tips, how to get the most out of your battery life on your Android device and things you can do to help optimize that performance. Chapter 7 is all about the top 10 Android apps, our essential picks for apps that you need to get while you're on Android. Chapter 8 is transferring data onto Android and all about syncing, so moving and migrating data, which leads us into Chapter 9, migrating from iOS to Android specifically. So if you're coming from an iDevice like an iPhone, iPod, iPad, how you go about taking your photos, videos, music, etc., and moving that onto Android. And of course, that leads us here, the course recap, a full overview of everything we learned in the course and summarizing it all in one. Also, be sure to check out our bonus content, which we're going to throw in at the end of the chapters. If you want to get a couple extra content regarding Android and all of that, we threw in some extra tips and software recommendations as far as customizing the UI and that sort of fun stuff. So be sure to check out that as well. So starting us off with Android, talking from the top here, Android is the top mobile operating system right now. It is sold on multiple devices out there. It covers a wide range of devices because Google made it open. It's known for its open environment, and that's why it's available for multiple manufacturers. LG can make an Android device. Google has their own Android devices, their Nexus lineup. Samsung has multiple Android devices like their Galaxy Notes and Galaxy S5s and S4s, and its main competitors being that of iOS and the Windows Phone. Android has a couple of versions out there. Currently, we're on 4.4. That is the current version, which is Kit Kat, and they're all named after desserts. So you have honeycomb, jelly bean, eclair, froyo, which all make up a big part of the market. The thing about Android and the market space for Android, it's very, very fragmented. That's one thing you're going to hear a lot when people talk about Android. It's not like iOS where a lot of the migration goes onto the next version of iOS and Apple kind of just manufactures two devices at a time. Android has a ton of different devices out there, has a ton of different devices on different versions of software, and there's so many manufacturers that no one Android device is the same. You'll have big phones, small phones, big tablets, small tablets, each have different high def screens, low resolution screens, high def cameras. So for example, you'll have like Jelly Bean will look like Kit Kat, Froyo, and obviously all that stuff. Android each of them also at times have different looks and feels depending on how the user customizes it. And beyond that, manufacturers at time will throw on a skin on top of the device by default. So no Android device really looks the same, and at the same time it gives you that option to customize it to look how you want it to look. Because it's known for its open environment, it's literally built on open source code, users in the community have really developed an assortment of apps out there for you to customize the look and feel of your Android device. If you really want something that is totally yours and how you want it to look, feel, and operate, that's where Android really shines. In comparison to its counterpart iOS, which we used this chart earlier on, it's built on a Linux operating system. It's a very open OS. It features things like widgets and multiple platforms and hardware, and things like Google Now, versus where Apple has a limited platform as far as like its widgets go and customization. It's strictly Apple, so it's there's no other people manufacturing iOS on their devices. and it features an assistant like Siri. So where Google shines in comparison to iOS is that of the openness, the ability to really have choice in where you want to go and what device you want to have. You have the ability to choose between a device that has a big screen and a nice camera, if that's what you want, a 5-inch screen, a 4.5-inch screen, 4.7-inch. There's a market for that. It gives you control over your device, and the fact that you have other options like external storage. If that's a big concern to you, you can have upgradable storage with SD cards. You can have, a phone that has really, really good battery life. Again, the choice comes down to you. And speaking of choice, that also means price range. The price gap between Android has been widening, I should say, between that of iOS devices over the years. In 2013 alone, there was already a 374 price gap between some of the feature phones on Android and that of iOS or Apple's iPhones. So there's a big price gap. There's a price range. You can get a phone that is, cheaper, more expensive, whatever fits your budget. There's a lot of different Android devices out there. That's why in the market, it's so flooded with so many Android devices, and it's the number one mobile operating system. They have simple flip phones. They have feature phones, smartphones, all that great stuff. Tablets, mid-sized tablets, huge tablets. Android offers, again, a really, really diverse ecosystem and a lot of room for choice and personalization on what device needs, specs, form factor fit you. Speaking of devices, we also overlooked what are the top current devices in that of this time frame, which was in 2014. What are the top devices that are selling as of right now? It's phones like the Galaxy S5, the Note, the Galaxy Note, latest version of that, the Note 4, and the HTC M8, and a lot of different other phones out there that we compared and how they're selling. There's a lot of different phones out there, some featuring, crazy specs, big screens, and that's the thing. When it comes to choosing an Android device, there's a lot of factors that come into play. What screen size do you want? Do you want like an AMOLED display? Do you want an OLED display? What type of display do you want? You want a really, really high def? Is price a concern? What are the specs as far as a processor, RAM, storage, the camera? Do you want a really, really high quality camera, like an 8 megapixel camera, front facing camera? Do you want 1080p video? These are all questions that you need to ask yourself when it comes to picking your Android device, because there's so many out there. Do you want a stylus? Do you not want a stylus? Again, the options, the choices, the form factor and design of so many phones, because there are so many out there in the Android spectrum. You can get some with a really great glass and aluminum body, some with more plastic body or a fake leather look and feel. There's just so many choices, and we kind of narrowed down what are the top devices being sold right now and the things to consider when purchasing an Android device. All right, that led us into the Google Play Store. We gave you guys an overview of the Google Play Store. That is essentially Android's mobile app market, currently with 1.3 plus million applications. In comparison of that to the App Store, it has a ton of apps out there. It has much more apps than the App Store as of right now. They are very kind of similar in that of download ratio. Android does, I think, have a little bit more out there. However, one thing to keep in mind with the Play Store is that the revenue stream is still on iOS. So while Android dominates in the sheer app size and quantity, as far as qualities goes into that of revenue, the money's being made on App Store. And the App Store has way more developers making a higher revenue than that of the Google Play Store, just because of people are more, and it seems in the comparison in charts, people are willing to spend more money on the App Store market, whereas the Android market is more catered towards free apps, and people are willing to go with free apps. As far as statistics show, the revenue just outweighs Android on iOS. As well as the Play Store incorporating a lot of different things. It doesn't only sell apps, it sells games, it sells books, it sells music, movies, and TV. So it's kind of becoming an all-in-one shop for you, very similar to that of iTunes. We also focused on a lot of the basic Android features and kind of just a tour around the interface. We talked a lot about customization and how Android kind of sticks itself out there with its widgets and home screen, and how it really sets itself apart from other operating systems with that, and it's been doing that for a while. The option for external storage, many devices support SD cards, also giving you full device access. Android is known for its system access. You can do a lot of crazy things like rooting the device, getting underlying statistics about your device and what's really eating up your device as far as battery life and app processes. Android is very, very known for giving you a lot of that under the hood specs and look at what's happening underneath your device. Hardware. That's really a feature in itself when it comes to Android. But hardware is just all over the place. You'll have devices that are really pushing the envelope. Since Android is licensed out to many manufacturers, you see a lot of innovation. You see a push for new things, new people, new companies trying out new strategies, new screens, new sizes and form factors. You have the LG, the Flex phone that has a kind of curve to it, and all these different phones out there. So hardware in itself is a big feature of Android. We then went and demoed a little bit of a tour around the Android OS. So we did a little bit of the navigation around the UI, how to access some settings, performing common tasks, and what a lot of the stock apps do within Android. So it's definitely worth going back and looking at those individual chapters, because we do a live demo on an Android simulated software. So you can really get a look and feel of how to navigate around the Android OS. It's a big learning curve, especially when we talked about migrating from iOS. There's a lot of different stuff to it. So Android definitely, is different in a lot of ways, and there's a lot of stuff to learn and go about. One big thing we also talked about was saving battery life. As far as getting usage out of your device day to day, what are some tips to help you save and get optimal battery life for both work and, of course, work and personal preferences when you're using your device? We talked a lot about key aspects like, the display, making sure apps aren't running in the background, and turning off certain hardware that doesn't need to be running. So you can view the full list of tips on the actual video. We also looked a lot at third-party applications that can help optimize your experience. So we looked a lot at apps that have widgets and things of that nature that can help you look at what's eating up your battery, what's running, what doesn't need to be running, and some apps that feature kind of just a one-button touch process that eliminates all that stuff to make sure your device is running optimally. Android in itself gives you a really great breakdown of what's taking up and eating your battery life on the device. So it's a great way to look back and look into the settings and look at what's really eating up your extra precious hours of device usage that you could be getting. So definitely worth going back to this chapter, reviewing all of those, and getting that extra juice out of your Android device. We went on to give our top 10 app picks. This was our essential apps for both work and home usage. And then we kind of went out there to talk a little bit about the Google Play Store, because at the end of the day, these are all available via Google Play Store, of course, but preference is what it comes down to. The top apps for you are going to be different from everybody else, but we really wanted to give our essential picks. And we have this generated list here of all the apps that we chose. We have Vast, the security application and antivirus tool, Mailbox, the email tool, WhatsApp, the messenger that's cross-platform, SoundCloud, a great music and discovery tool, Where's My Droid, a tracking application for your Droid device, Nova Launcher, a user interface customization, as well as SwiftKey, which is a third-party keyboard, Google Maps, navigation app, Google Now, kind of a virtual assistant to that of your Google device that's kind of packed in there, and Evernote, an all-in-one note-taking application. So we individually talked all about these apps and what they do and why they're really essential for your usage on Android and why you want to try them out. Most of them or all of them are pretty much free, though there are some paid alternatives and premium accounts that you can get with some of them. And we even went as far as to demo a lot of the applications. So if you really want to get an in-depth look at that, definitely head back to that chapter. Data transfer was a big thing that we recapped in this whole course on Android, because whether it is you're new to Android or you're coming from iOS and migrating, data transfer is a big topic. We talked about how to back up and restore data, syncing that with your Google account, so if you have a Gmail account, the ability to transfer data to external storages like SD cards that are built into your device, and then syncing that media on your Mac or PC. So how to get it onto your Mac or PC, and vice versa, how to get data from your Mac and PC onto your Android device. We talked a lot about software and alternative methods. And then, of course, we focused on migrating from iOS to Android. So we'll talk a little bit about that, because we covered so many different services. We covered, cloud services like Dropbox, which you can use to sync your data and migrate data across, of course. We talked about AirDroid, which allows you to very, very easily and wirelessly hook up to your Android device and then, again, transfer data from your Mac or PC very, very simply. And this goes in conjunction with the move from iOS to Android. If you're moving from iOS to Android, we looked at a lot of key aspects, the things you're going to want to take off of your iPhone as far as like your contacts, your apps and app data and messages and all that stuff, how to save that to your Mac or PC if you ever want to keep that, but also what to keep in mind when switching to Android, because it is a big transition. You're going to have to look for the apps that are compatible from iOS to Android and have to reinstall those apps, noting that some apps will not be available on the Google Play Store, but there are a plethora of alternatives out there. And again, just focusing on backing up what was key for you on your iOS device and how you can move all of that over: phone numbers, pictures, videos, music, and have still the same access to those on your Android device. Very simply, very easy. And again, we did a guide on that, whether you're on Mac, PC, software you can use that's free and both paid. All right. So all in all, this was a big chapter. We had 2 breakdowns on it from the data transfer aspect. We talked about backing up your data on your Android device itself. That's another thing we talked about, how to go about syncing your Google stuff and how convenient and easy it is when you have a Google account, because when you have a Google account, your contacts, your calendar, all that stuff syncs with your Gmail account, and you don't have to worry. So if you're upgrading from Android to a new Android device, let's say you had an S4 and you're going to an S5, you want to migrate all that data, it's really simple when you have a Google account. That's one of the great things about Android. It's so centered on that Google account that if a lot of your services and apps are based on that, it's very, very easy to move data over. Again, backing up, very, very important. Keeping sure your data is safe, secure, wherever you may go, whether it's from iOS, Android to a new device, so on and so forth. All right, as a full overview, I think from this Android OS guide, these are a lot of the big things that you should have taken away in an overall view from going through chapters 1 through 10. We gave a really big introduction to the OS in itself, the openness and architecture of Android, and what sets it apart from the competition. Just a very, very basic look at what it is in its entirety and how it goes across multiple devices in its own environment in itself. Speaking specifically about Android, we gave a basic navigation and feature set look at Android, and we feel that through that you'll be able to really pick up an Android device and know how to do the basic functionalities as far as performing basic tasks, what stock apps do, all that good stuff. Device overview, we wanted you to be able to look at what is the current space of Android devices right now in the frame of this video, which is 2014, what's hot selling, what are the top phones, what are factors to take into account in the future when buying phones when it comes to Android, because there's so many choices out there, so many factors that come into play. We also wanted you to understand the app market, the ecosystem that is behind the Google Play Store, how it fares up against competition, where it's going, how is its growth, and how to navigate around it. We showed you how to navigate it in the mobile space as far as on a device and on the web, and you can navigate it via, again, Google, just going to google.com and Play Store. We also featured a list of essential apps for you to download as soon as you get your Android device. So if you're new to Android and you're looking for the go-to apps in this guide, we also covered that. So we give you a sense and feel of the real big apps out there and what you need and why you would need them. Lastly, we focused a lot, like I said, on data transfer and migration, how to go about taking your data and your media, taking it from your Android device onto your computer, taking it from your computer to put it on your Android device, taking it from an older device like an iOS device or something and transitioning to that of Android. We feel this guide in a full sense covered all of these. So overall, Android operating system, there's so much to it. It's so complex. There's so many versions. There's so many devices. There's so much choice out there. But in that fragmentation, it offers so much personalization, so much customization, so much user-defined choices as far as what device suits them. The feature set is great and amazing, and it has a great amount of stuff packed into it. Android does lack in some areas that it's making up for, and it still has room and much room to grow. There's a great feature set of applications available for it, and just so much that makes it stand out from the competition. And we highlighted a lot of that, and we hope that you enjoyed this guide. We hope you enjoyed all chapters 1 through 10 in the full Android OS experience. We thank you all for watching. Don't forget to check out any of the previous chapters if you missed them. And again, thanks for watching.